Morning, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 11:41 a.m. This is the meeting to discuss the permanent manager position. We have an agenda for this. We'll go through that. I'd like to call the roll for this meeting. John Reiser.
Present.
Ryan Yeaple.
Present.
Jillian Carey. Present. Kathy Noel. Present. Judy Monk.
Present.
And Kathleen Brandt is present. And hopefully you've all seen the agenda. It's the four main topics that are in our charge from the Board of Trustees. Any requests for changes to that agenda? We have a motion to adopt.
Support.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is public comment. So it's nice we have the Zoom functionality working. Anybody in Township Hall? Like to speak?
Renee Klubeck. Quickly, I just wanted to say, I have input from people in the township, some curiosity that I think might be helpful for this committee to hear. After the meeting, the board meeting the other evening, there's just confusion by a lot of residents as to a project manager, a township manager, an office manager. And we appreciate the timing of reviewing this and helping us to understand not the overlapping and the specific duties. Because as speaking for myself and also several people that are within neighborhoods of myself, and they know I come to meetings, there is a confusion on, I don't like the word overstaffing, that seems to diminish a need, but there is confusion on responsibilities and clarity of that. So I just wanted to say that I'm here as a part of the township to say, we appreciate the time you're putting into this, because we as residents, many of us are confused with delegation of responsibilities. And because we are in such financial hard times across all over and in the township, and you know, we needed to really push to get our millage for the fire. I'm just trying to better understand the employee needs of the township. Not that we don't appreciate all the time and effort, but there is some confusion about perhaps overlapping or redundancy. So this is important to make sure that we understand as residents what the person that's being hired has for the job description and how they're here to build the township. So thank you so much. Appreciate your work.
Anyone else present in Township Hall would like to comment?
I do have someone online. We have Rob Pattinson with his hand raised. Go ahead, Rob.
There we go. Thank you, Christy. First of all, thank you, Christy, for the quick thinking to get the previous meeting on Zoom. Really appreciate that. And just to echo Renee Klubeck's comments, it will be important for this committee. Yes, it's the permanent manager you're looking for, but I think expanding to project manager, office coordinator, and ultimately finance manager job duties will be important. And also, I would like to thank Mr. Murphy for listening to the previous meeting and running down there with a tripod ensured that it would actually, the Zoom would actually work for this meeting. But well done getting it all up and on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Anyone else want to speak at public comment? I see no other hands raised.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is approval of the prior minutes. We have a draft copy in the agenda. Hope everyone's had a chance to read it. Are there any suggested changes?
Yeah, under public comment, our
Renee Klubeck. It says,
Yeah, spelling,
questioning
I have to
spelling.
correct the spelling when I,
Yeah.
when I give it the final to Christie.
Okay, well,
Okay,
make
so you know,
Yeah, I made
You
it
get
on
it
the
already.
lines already.
okay. Oh, you did, okay.
Yeah. That was my,
In that, I motion to approve the minutes as presented with minor amendment.
a second. Okay,
I would vote in favor of that.
oh yeah, we have to
And
vote.
vote
on
in
that.
favor of the agenda too.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And now we're gonna move on to unfinished business. So at our last session, we discussed, defining the role, and we talked about, some background information for the committee to consider. And there were 3 items in that. One is the township ordinance, definition for township manager. Secondly, the document that shows the unanimous approval of a job description for township manager. And then, as well as reviewing, the details of David Rowley's, recommended actions to the board. Okay, so if you don't mind, I would suggest that we start with the job description. That was approved by the board on July 27th, 2021.
Administrator job description?
Yes, I'm sorry, administrator. So what I would suggest, and please provide feedback, is that we start going through this in order and questioning or supporting if that need exists or if it's overlapped with other positions, staffing positions. Okay, so the position summary is mostly about following township policies, ensuring compliance, make sure that administrative decisions are put into effect. And in delegating tasks as needed. Any comments on that?
Could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
We've experienced the administrator and also a manager. I think most of us have been around long enough. Could we possibly maybe go over the pros and cons of what we've experienced? Because reading the job description and then also our experience, that's what I'm thinking, because there's some things that were great. We know that the public and staff like to go to a person or know that they could go to a single person or maybe, you know, and then with the administrator versus a manager, remember, David Rowley had said, your township needs a manager, not an administrator. I'm not really sure what the difference was. There is a difference, but it's slight. And I think the manager has a little bit more power based on statute. Well, for example, in the Uniform Budget and Accounting Act, it states that the supervisor oversees the budget unless the township has a manager. But if the township had an administrator, that administrator would not be able to have those duties.
Well, they semantically, I agree, but the board could make that clear.
Okay, so it was just.
I'm not advocating title either way, but I do support what you're saying, that manager is referenced in general law statute.
Mhm.
General law township statute. So if you want to be consistent with statute, you would use the title manager.
Mhm.
Okay,
So is that something that we would want to be clear that it's a manager instead of an administrator?
sure, I think we should establish what the title should be.
I think that's what the charge of this group was, we always called it search for a permanent manager.
Correct.
So that implied, even though we never voted on administrator versus manager.
Correct, but the point of this committee is to look at what works and what
Yes,
doesn't.
but,
And that could
yeah.
be either admit, it's whatever we choose and what works for the township.
And we may not be able to decide this today. I mean, this might be part of our ongoing discussion.
So
Because,
our charge is to define the role, creating a complete job description.
but I mean, it
In
may
a
not happen
discussion,
in one session, is what I'm saying.
right, so, what I was trying to facilitate is that we have an outline that we could use. I do take the point that, I would like to discuss what our prior experience and the pros and
Me
cons.
too.
Maybe they can be its own agenda item, maybe not at this meeting, but the future meeting? Or,
We're starting now.
okay.
We could start
I don't have
today.
any problem discussing that now.
Okay.
I do have feedback.
Sure.
So I do have feedback. John, would you like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
What?
No, I,
Why don't you go
an
around the
interruption
table?
is not the proper way to
Kathleen,
take input. That's
You
all.
interrupted me.
I'm sorry.
Should we go?
Okay,
go
so
around the
Kathy,
table?
would you like to start that? Else I can add to it.
Okay, so are you asking for the pros and cons of an administrator versus a manager? Is that-
No.
Okay, what do you?
I think what Julian was asking for is pros and cons of what we have had in the past, the role. No
Okay,
matter what the
well,
title is.
Okay,
Well,
I mean, is
this
that
is gonna
correct?
be kind of a free flowing discussion then.
That's
But, I've seen good and bad, in my opinion. One of my concerns with putting everything under a manager title is that we do have capable staff right now who are functioning increasingly at higher levels, and that is what we want to support. So I'm not opposed to labeling this position as a manager, but I want us to look very closely at where we are now compared to where we were a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. I think that one of our problems in the past with a manager or an administrator was that they were not necessarily answering to the entire board. They were answering to a certain subgroup. And I think that some of what happened in the past wasn't a reflection of the entire board that was seated at that time. And I have to say it, may not go over well with some, but this concept of the good old boy network is real, and it happened. So, and it may still be happening, I don't know, but I think there are all these things at play that we are going to have to seriously consider as we go through this. So I was very pleased with David Rowley and Mark Thompson. Now, not everyone was, I know, but I'm just saying as for examples, David was insightful and knowledgeable. He spoke his truth, and some on the board didn't like it. It's a complicated organization, and I don't know if it's going to take a new person a long time to get a sense of all the departments and everybody. So it's, this has got to be a discussion. I mean, Cause I'll have more thoughts later, but this is a starting point and I'll stop there. It's kind of free flowing.
John, did you want to contribute?
I'm just wondering if there is a similar job description for township manager. We've got one for township administrator.
Yeah.
But is there one for manager that's not in the packet? And obviously, there's probably duties spelled out in the township manager's contract that talks about some of those, so.
Our ordinance has the
Yep,
manager.
we got that.
Yeah, that's, but then
But
there's the contract with Joyce that was different than,
Yeah, but we're gonna address that under,
There is something, John, I don't know. But we changed the title from administrator to manager and kept parts of the prior job description when we did that. So, but there is something out there.
okay.
This was the one that the entire board, or 6 board members were in agreement on. The 6 that were there, we voted unanimously yes for this.
On this administrator one.
Yes,
Okay.
So,
yes.
and I also want to just remind you, I have a 12:15 that I need to leave, so, but I will commit to watching the rest of your discussions, on Zoom when it's posted. Thanks.
anything else
No, I appreciate that.
on the, pros and cons, past experience, feedback?
I think the pro has been having a single individual. I think we have seen that having a single individual person that is leadership is very helpful. I mean, we've definitely seen that with Christie filling this role in the interim. I think many of the people that have been here either permanently or temporarily have been, have had different levels of success or failure. I think the biggest con has been what the expectation of any group is of that individual at any one time. I think some people with a very loud voice are very passionate. I don't think that's necessarily wrong. But when one individual leads this manager or administrator, whatever the ending job title ends up being, or a subset, we all fail because we're not all moving in the same direction. As a township and as an organization. I think the biggest failure of it all has been not willing to work collaboratively with this person when they have had feedback. I think that's been a failure, especially of Mr. Rowley. And I think it's been a communication issue a lot of times with several of these folks that have served in the role in one way or another. Us communicating clearly to them what our expectations are, and then back to us.
Jelly, did you finish your content or your comments?
no, and I agree, communication, but communication not just with the manager and the board and vice versa, but just in general. There's, what I noticed, in the, going back all the way to 2018 or 19, when I got involved, that there was this buffer between residents, at the time I was a resident, the manager and the board. And there were a lot of things that were lost or not addressed, and then that created frustration. And then to find out that the board didn't even know about some of these things that the residents were voicing. That was one thing. Another thing is that with the job description, that's just way too much for one person to do. And, you know, we set people up to fail just by, I mean, with other job descriptions too. And then we say, there's this caveat at the end, and anything else that the board directs you to do, and which, you know, then we end up piling things on. But just that, you look at the ordinance alone, the job description for a manager, it's huge. And it's just not fair. So that's been a real issue. And then as many meetings as we're involved with, the manager takes over a lot of those, or has to go to, you know, most of there's no way to have, you know, in between time to get things done. regarding the manager, there was something else too. Oh, and then the board, as a board member with the manager not getting the information or finding out that there's employees or staff or resident that they had conversations, but then it never came to the board members. And that was a real issue, or even things that we needed. And of course, again, the person's just so busy that they can't address everything.
Okay, I'll go next because I said I could. So based on what I have observed and feedback that I've gotten from a prior manager, previous administration, I'm concerned that role can easily usurp the duties of the board. And I have seen that happen, that a person is making decisions that are rightly belong to the Board of Trustees. Now, it is the obligation of the Board of Trustees to make a correction of that. And that hasn't happened. So I would like to define the job description to be things that are not board duties, fiscal responsibility, and others in statute. I think the job description is too broad. It's very much too broad, which leads to potentially usurping of duties. We have now hired a number of department heads, professional staff, extremely experienced, that if you look at the job description of the administrator / manager, it would seem to take on some existing staff's responsibility. And that's why I want to go through that. For example, project manager, contract management. So I would like to see us rely on professional staff, have a method for the board to get regular updates from staff so that all the board members know what's going on. So I would like to formalize a process for the staff to provide feedback. Hopefully not at night, maybe during the day, maybe once a month. But I am very concerned about the position being allowed to go beyond what is intended. So to address that, have the job description be clear, but also accept the fact that the board has to rein in. We have a responsibility to fulfill our duty and not allow some members to dictate. I don't expect that from this board, but it would be easier if it was more clear going forward what the expectations are.
I agree with what you're saying, and I just, case in point, as we've been navigating the situation without a manager, Christy has assumed more and more responsibilities, and it's gone really well. So it's kind of, much to my surprise, I thought there would be issues and problems, and it's gone well for you.
Yeah.
I mean, which is interesting. And would we even want to go back to a system where Christy doesn't have the responsibilities that she has right now? I don't think we would want to. I think you've done a good job, and I don't know. So that's an issue for us to talk about.
Yeah, and Christy, also, maybe there's certain things that you just don't want to do, or you would like, oh, if somebody else could do this, I could put more energy into these other things. That's another thing we could look at.
that is going to change when we have a deputy treasurer up front.
I think that probably will change because you're doing a lot of. At least when I saw cash receipting yesterday, there's a lot of times you and Fran especially are doing a lot of cash receipts.
All cash receipts,
Yeah,
all counter cash receipts. Every day, all day, every customer.
gotcha.
Let's ask Judy if she has any comments on.
No, don't. That's the dialogue goes. Mine are, I saw the Raleigh document and very impressed by his ability to succinctly and articulate what he was leaving behind undone, much to his disappointment.
Yeah.
Yes, so I think that to his credit. I have just a few observations that would tie into administrator or managers is one, leadership. Is that what I did not feel we had, and so that's my only base point here is the individual that we had. I did not experience or observe leadership from that individual. And that is not title specific. That is a characteristic that you want to look for in the position. And so someone who can lead through challenges, lead through crises, lead through responsibilities. And I just didn't think we had that. And so that would be one. The second one is performance management. For this individual, when they report to a board, there's always the risk of not doing performance management well, which gets to the point Kathleen was making about setting expectations, holding the person to expectations, reining them in, giving them guidance. So when you have 7 people that they report to, one board member may say, step up over here, and another one says, step up over here, and another one says, oh, you are way out of bounds over here. So the written document becomes far more critical so that all Board of Trustee members are holding that individual to the expectations as opposed to being pinball machined. And I think that that's a very important thing for us as a board, is having a written job description that is, in fact, can be evaluated against and hold him or her to, has to be measurable. And so the performance management part is important for us to have clear. And then the other area is contract management. Is right now, it appears to be dispersed. And I would like to have our manager or administrator be a person who may not be the one who's executing on all the contracts, but knows at all times our contracts. Because as many people here attend all these meetings, and there's this contract and there's this, and an example is this Parks one that came up, no, pardon me, yeah, Parks/LPC, where we agreed, the township agreed to name some property after someone. And we have not met our obligation on
the
it.
details of the contract.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
someone who, they don't have to memorize the contracts, but be a point person on our township meeting our obligations of contracts. And another example I will give is our waste management, well, it was GFL, is that contract, regardless of who signed it and who signed off on it, it was not executed to the point where we held GFL to the things that are actually in what we all agree is probably a biased contract. But there's things in there that we could have held them to. And we lose when we don't. And so contract is one area that I think is an important one that has to be on administrator or manager's plate, that because it exposes us. It exposes us not only in a financial way, it exposes us legal ways, and we need to have certainly better handle on that than we've had. So those are my three areas that I know we can do better at.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
This has been something that I've had in mind. Along with contract management for services that the township engages with or agreements we have with property owners, we need management of development agreements. So whether that is with this position or with another position,
It's assigned.
that it's assigned, because I'm not convinced that we've always gotten what was promised.
And that's on us, that, you know, we own.
Right, and so-
That's right.
So
Yeah.
to effectively do that, you need a database of what was
Bingo.
committed in timeframes. Doesn't have to be a major big deal, could even be in a tool like Excel, but that needs to be assigned. It's still contract management.
And to add to that, we've got the flyers over here that I've heard nothing but wonderful things about. But they had a lease agreement with us, and now we're moving, I guess, away from the lease. But they're, I guess, getting free access, you might say. We all love them. I'm not taking anything away from them. But it's a relationship we have. The other is about a barn that we have an agreement with. So whether it involves Scio relationships that we just need to get our arms
So I want
around.
to tag team on that, because I think this is really significant that we have clear responsibility for contract management, and it is the thought process, I believe, in the committees that they have responsibility for some contracts. The flyers is a perfect example.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that the information about the flyers
Yeah.
too. At
Me
the Parks
too.
meeting.
All of a
Like,
sudden, we got
Yes.
that they've adopted, you know, that flyers are permanent. And I
Well,
don't-
they've always,
and they
yeah.
have, I have no objection
Yeah.
to them, but. Yeah.
so I just want to say one thing in comment to, like you said, Judy, I agree with you and I agree with Kathleen that better contract management is something we need. We need to have this manager, I'm presuming we're going to use the term manager, track the obligations on a contract and track the key obligations under a development agreement that need some monitoring. If, you know, some of them don't need much monitoring, but some of them do.
So we could also look at, if our ERP package, BSNA, if it has features for contract management, we should absolutely use them. It could be start date, ending date. It's a systematic way to at least monitor the contract without having to go either store it in your brain or store it in a paper file, so we can look at that.
I want to say one more thing. to what you said.
Yeah, I was gonna just make a quick comment. I've asked, particularly Will, and it's not a Will bash, but I said, well, how do you know what contracts are coming up? Do you keep?
Exactly.
Bingo.
And he said, I don't, they just bring them to me.
Right,
Who's that they?
Whoever,
Yeah.
Oh, just
whomever.
People,
right, so
very,
if there are
So no,
those,
there is no tracking system.
if there is functionality in BSNA, then we should take advantage of it.
So, can I say one thing in response?
Yeah,
to
yeah.
I wasn't, you talked about wanting a leader. And I think that would be nice. I've kind of given up on that, but, here's the problem. Kathleen raised the issue of the manager potentially overstepping and going into board duties. And I sensed you were saying you wanted a strong leader, and there might be some conflict with that. It's just something to think about. There might not be. but it's something to think
Absolutely.
about.
It's, for me, it is something you try to distill and discern in interview
Okay.
by putting positions in front of the individual about experience. And you try to see, because if they're coming from a municipal environment or a governmental position, that line should not be new to them, because they've probably been in a situation. And so you're trying to say, you know, how to tell the difference between elected official responsibilities and yours. So, I mean, that's what you're hiring someone, you try to look for what their experience is, how they handled it. Because leadership ability can be all the way from a janitor's role to, you know, parking attendant. Do they take responsibility for things? Do they own it? How have they handled past experiences? How have they balanced things in the past? You know, you say you want leadership skills in a job, just add, everyone has them. I have strong leadership skills. Yeah, you just have to kind of look for it.
So I think the thing that this committee is gonna, put the most effort in is a job description. And make sure that we get it right. And one of the things, that's why I wanted to go through that job description, just as a starting point. You can mark it up and say, this doesn't apply, add to it. One thing that I would suggest we add to it is clearly defined reporting requirements to the board.
yes.
That, yes, things happen if the board is not aware of them. Shame on the board for not directing what the reporting requirements are across the board. That's what I would add to the job description.
And let me piggyback on that a little bit. And also, everybody needs to be very clear on what the board's statutory duties are. Everybody, I mean, every employee, and especially the manager. And we need to be clear on our statutory duties as well. So we're not overstepping or thinking that we could give, you know, I can't give the treasurer's job duties to somebody else, but the treasurer could. Possibly, depending on what it is. So there's that, and, you know, well, let's not get into the details, we know what happened with some of the statutory duties. One of the cons of a manager is that there is high turnover. It's just, if you can look at other townships, they don't last very long, and they have huge severance packages a lot of times. Or they have a huge pay. They're there for a year or two and then they're gone. So this is something we need to, but I think we could avoid that by having the job duties, you know, breaking down the job duties for others. And then we'll have this person and whatever that job duty is, it wouldn't be, because I think it's a high burnout profession, you know, with the job duties that are assigned, you know, like the superintendent job duties of a charter township that we impose onto a manager. So there's that. And also, you were just talking about contract management. Wouldn't that be under the project manager?
Well,
I mean, I know there's different types of contracts, but
not
that's-
necessarily project managers, the role should be that they have defined projects that they manage.
okay, so,
It doesn't mean that they manage all projects. It could be the utility director manages their own build schedule or something.
okay,
And to add to that, depending on the expertise of your staff, and how many staff you can afford, you may have a contract manager and a project manager. I mean, they're going to have, but a project manager, for example, let's say the HVAC, just as an example, that's a distinct project that the person could take from start to finish. And that person would probably not have any bandwidth to handle all sorts of other contracts, because
Okay.
and so, you just, I mean, you could, but I don't think that's our situation where the project manager would also.
well,
be-
just, yeah, but I was just thinking if we have the manager and then the manager's doing the contract management, or is it the software that you're talking about? Then anybody could, that has a contract in their department could put that into the contract management software. That's why
yes.
you're,
Yes, that is what I'm familiar with, that in an organization, individuals may be responsible for certain areas, and there's a contract that controls that. Well, how does centrally the organization know when those contracts are expiring, with the dollar amounts determined? So it can be managed by a person, but the knowledge, if it's in a centralized area, then contract management for this position could be saying, wait a minute, our HVAC contract maintenance is expiring in 6 months. To do oversight. And then another thing for what you mentioned about high turnover, our charge says that we will operate within the confines of the policies and personnel handbook. So we talked about having somebody bring their own contract and their own terms and conditions. Then, for example, severance pay, or, excessive requests for 6 weeks of vacation. No, we should manage that based on what we have, only by exception. That's part of our charge, is to fit it in. So if a severance package is not warranted, you don't put that in, that's not.
okay,
Yeah, are they employees or are they 1099 employees? And, or 1099 contractors?
or do they begin 1099 and then become,
Well, that's,
yeah. Kind of,
We also start walking down a slippery slope of employment law, by the way, when you're talking about 1099 people. There's been litigation at the federal level about people paying people as 1099
Yeah.
employees,
Yeah.
which is not a thing.
absolutely.
So I don't wanna go too far down that. Some things I just wanna I've been taking notes about what everybody's been saying, Tell me if this rings true for everybody. I wrote down a must-have list.
Yeah.
A reporting requirement to the Board of Trustees. Somebody familiar with contract management and leadership. Those are sort of the 3 key things I picked out of all the notes I've written. Are there more? I want to limit it to like 6 or 7 words. I don't want it to be.
Well, that's why I would like to go through the current.
Yeah.
Because that should be at least, or that could be at least a starting point to say,
Yeah.
is this in or out?
I'd support going back to where we started with that a little
I
bit
think
ago.
they need to be more than familiar with contract management.
Strong contract
Yeah.
management experience. Kathleen, I would also support going back to, what you suggested,
Okay.
you start.
I think it is a very good discussion to say, what worked in the past, what
Yeah.
didn't, lessons learned.
Sure.
I think we can take it from the prior administration. It's a very good roadmap for things not to do.
Mhm.
If I could ask, Jillian, had said about things that work and didn't work, and past experience. Now, one question I had about past experience was about the org, what I'll call org chart, a famous thing like that, this. And, this is one, Will gave me yesterday, because I was asking Christy for one, and Will overheard, and Will produced, or gave me one that's dated 2022. So, yes, and this one still has the word township administrator on it. And everyone is practically under the administrator.
Yeah.
Other than the treasurer had his or her positions and the clerk had theirs. But everyone else is under the administrator. Now, how does that work? That the
Well,
administrator,
they didn't.
I'm not sure this was adopted
Yeah.
by the whole township board.
Yes.
This might have been Will's vision.
Out of curiosity,
If
is the
there's
fire,
another-
is the fire chief shown on that reporting to the administrator?
Yes.
yes,
That's not correct.
Yes, see that.
okay,
Well, there's another
There's
management
other
model.
things that probably are incorrect, but that's one position that reports to the board, I know off the top of my head.
okay, so let me go through that for just give me 30 seconds.
Huh?
The finance manager, who will,
In theory, the finance manager will report to the clerk.
Well.
okay, so I'm gonna put that for, okay. So when that one's hired, it would not be a manager's responsibility or administrator, it would be
That's what we.
What is that? Sorry, what is that position? We're gonna,
the finance
Finance
manager.
that's under the clerk.
So
Okay,
this is where we get to statutory
Yes.
requirements.
okay, that's good, then
The
fire
assessor,
chief, okay, so the fire chief right now goes, or who,
At that
is there any
time,
statutory? Okay, well,
and it was not, I do not believe it was statutory.
okay, is there
It
any
was done by
statutory
board
rule about
action.
that?
It was done by board action, who the fire chief reported to.
And right now, it's board of trustees.
No, it's Christie.
Currently, it's Christie.
Oh, great,
In
pardon.
2022, I believe it was the board of trustees.
Okay, but right now it's Christie, or what is our interim
Yes.
manager.
Correct.
Okay, sheriff, planning, engineering, IT, all of these. contracts.
They all go together.
Yeah, they're all together on here.
Wait a minute.
I would suggest that is not a good start.
Yeah, I
It's
don't.
not, okay, I see
Yeah.
that.
Also somewhat old.
You want.
I'm like, I thought this was a good starting point, but I'm only 2 boxes in it. Okay,
I will just say that number one, unless that has like the actual board meeting, like date on it. Number one, may not have ever been presented, number two, probably has never been adopted
It
at
wasn't
any point.
adopted.
okay, got it.
There's stories around that.
Yeah, we.
Okay, that's,
Different day, different time.
sometimes what you see is what you get, and I'm seeing it. Okay, I stand
Judy,
redirected.
the other thing that might be helpful, just as a point of memory, and some other people here have more memory about this. Just to give you a little bit of background, there was a whole township, the township government's committee to determine the manager and
Oh.
administrator.
The administrative committee.
Ah, yes,
Yeah, and
Kathy can tell you about it.
Oh, no.
I came in at the end of it. I just
You
heard
should go
it
back and
existed.
watch the recordings.
Okay.
That's a lot for her
Uh,
to do.
The records of it are still on the website.
Okay,
Yeah,
very good.
that's maybe a rabbit hole you don't want to. go
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so
Okay,
yeah, not a
so
good start.
you'll start
Okay,
ranking.
got it.
So to try to focus our efforts.
Yeah.
Can we look at the job description for township administrator?
Mhm.
And actually now I want to start at the top. Let's not be concerned about the title at this point. Or the working title, or the funding. We will definitely talk about salary. There, it says in here, reports to the Board of Trustees. I'm not sure why this parenthetically says, including the clerk, the treasurer, and the supervisor.
We're all the board of the trustees.
Well, it just put a thought in my head that you could streamline that to the officers. I'm not saying,
No, it should be the entire board.
okay. All right. And then we will get into supervisors and oversight. We'll talk about that at some point.
Where are you on this job
Page
description?
1, at the,
Okay.
it,
Very
it's
top.
sort of the header information.
Okay,
Yes, there should be a position summary. I don't know if we want to adopt this or not. I don't think it's crucial that we define that exactly now. I think it would be more clear once we get to the individual responsibilities. So if we look at the individual responsibility, it talks about administration. Plan, monitor, evaluate, and supervise the township's administrative services and information management across all areas of the township.
Yeah, and what does that mean exactly?
that needs to be rewritten.
I totally think that needs to be written because this is where it becomes
Correct.
too broad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might as well just say you're responsible for everything.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I mean, when you use a phrase that supervise the township administrative services, those should be clearly defined. If you say that,
We could say the following township administrative services and then list them. Because I don't think we want all of these to be under a manager.
Also,
sure.
fire to be considered, fire would never be considered an administrative service.
No.
right, so we clearly follow statute that says the supervisor is responsible for the assessing function. The treasurer is responsible for the treasury functions, and the clerk is responsible for the financial journals and ledgers, which I believe we're gonna make a correction in the new board,
And also the election duties.
in the election duties. So, you know, what I've seen, if we have added these professional staff, how do they effectively, how do we effectively know what the professional staff is doing and give them the authority to do what they need to do? I'm open to suggestions on that. It can be a defined reporting relationship that they detail to the board, everything they're doing. I don't know.
You know, it may also be good to have them do both. You know, have the point person for the departments to go to, but then also have them report to the board as well, because then we have a checks and balances. We don't, and sometimes, and I'm finding this out, that, you know, the staff goes to their higher up, whomever that may be, and if that higher up doesn't want to deal with it, it just ends there, and then the staff is frustrated, no matter where they are. And then it could get past their department head or whatever, go to the manager, and if the manager doesn't want to deal with it, then, you know, we're still stuck with the same problem. And we should be always looking for solutions. So having the department heads report to, let's say if we one manager and also to the board, you know, regular reports and whatnot. That way we know if something's happening that's not being addressed, that we could address that. Now, you know, and maybe later on, if we grow, we're gonna grow, that we can always change things. And we also need feedback from our staff to know what needs to be changed. Without having them feeling like it's just gonna fall on deaf ears, because that's been for a long time. The way things have been, the way things have always been.
Jillian, if I understand that, so we've had these issues that the staff has raised and basically ignored or put on back burner because they chose not to be addressed or
Or
ignored.
even retaliated against.
Oh.
Well, that's a personal thing, what?
Yeah, but,
Okay, okay.
but the point is that if they need to feel comfortable, if they're not, whatever it is that they're dealing with or needing change, that if it's not being addressed, that they feel comfortable enough to go to the next. But the board still needs to be aware, at least at this point,
So
until
that could not just be negative, that could also be they have ideas for improvement.
Absolutely.
For efficiency and effectiveness, and you want them to be able to feel empowered to affect their workplace.
And this is all true. I agree with some of what you're saying. But in the past, when staff has chosen to bypass the manager and then go to the board, that raises other issues. So, I mean,
Well, and
that's been a problem too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Okay.
yeah, but then why do they feel that they have to go to the board? They should be able to have their, whatever it is, addressed by the manager, and not just staff, also residents. We know, we've heard from residents
I
that feel
agree.
like, you know, they've gone to somebody and it just, nothing happens. Not to say that we can solve everything, but sometimes
Acknowledge,
just,
though we
yeah,
can acknowledge.
and sometimes
And
that's all
that's
they
true for
need.
staff too, can acknowledge, and there might not be a solution, or it might be out of our hands, but acknowledgement is obligation. You know, I see you, I see you.
Some of the things that we've seen recently could be a product of the individuals that we've had as elected officers and the individuals that we've had as a manager or administrator.
Yeah.
I mean, some of this is,
Is people's, it could be.
yes,
right,
some of
could
it
be.
is.
But no matter who's in charge or who's on the board, that these things should be in, or if it's a policy or whatever, or a job description, that they're in place and that no matter who's in that role. Does that make sense?
Of
Am I
course
saying
it
the right?
does.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Well, it circles back to something that Kathy said about this good old boy network,
Yeah,
whether,
nobody's talking about that.
yeah, whether, or whatever you call it,
Yeah.
it is behind the scenes levers.
Yes.
And that's a culture.
Yes.
And whether it is good old boys, it's behind the scenes levers that we really have to dismantle and change that culture. And you just have to, one, identify it when it's happening and chip away at it. It can be done, but it has to be like acknowledged that it's there.
Absolutely, even if it's not around, but there's been a conditioning for a long time, especially with the staff, that, you know, they're used to whatever that is that they've been going through, just like in our families or, you know,
Yeah,
community or
that's-
whatever.
Yeah, so for this exercise, if you agree, that we take this text and we either validate and accept it or we change it. So, starting with this, plan, monitor, and evaluate and supervise the township's administrative services. I have a note here that says define administrative services. And information management. I don't know what information management means. I don't know if I would keep that in there.
Well, I would think we're gonna want to remove it because information management could include the BSNA software
Right,
that Jessica has raised issues about being shut out of. So I think we need to have Jessica's input into that issue on information management.
so I'm just I'm gonna cross that out for now.
Okay.
So what I envision is that we take this as a template, we start to rewrite it, we share that, we keep working on it. So then it says across all areas of the township, that's just way too
Yeah, it's
broad.
way too broad.
Well, and information management could mean social media, website,
Could.
Could be.
IT.
IT is frequently.
Yeah.
Okay,
And we have an IT director now where we didn't back then. Well, I don't
okay,
think we did.
so, all areas is too broad, including but not limited to
Yeah.
fire, we've already removed that.
Remove that.
Do you think utilities should report to this, position?
Probably, because sometimes there are issues that come up that need attention beyond what branding can easily provide. I mean, okay, with the utilities, I
With
see
water main
issues.
breaks.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes he's
Yeah.
gotta come and get authorization to move forward with whatever he's doing.
Okay,
Yeah, it has
Or guidance, however you
Yeah.
wanna.
okay.
Yeah.
Next, it says general government. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means.
I would
I
delete
think
that.
what it's implying is the building, but it doesn't specifically say that. I think that's what the implication is, because I believe Fund 101 actually has like a subheading of general government on our revenue expense report. That's my guess, but we can remove it and come back to that.
I think we should remove it for now.
Utilities that includes facilities management,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Should.
Okay, that's a department head, okay. Planning and zoning.
It's
Well, here's the problem. The administrator or manager has been overseeing this for a while. And they, I believe, has taken kind of a backseat, particularly recently, to issues. And, you know, planning and zoning is relatively self-sufficient. And like Laura Krebs is totally self-sufficient. But there are issues that come up that need to be discussed and others need to be involved. I'm not sure, I mean, this is gonna depend on the skill set of these applicants because I'm not sure that they will necessarily have the skill set to supervise planning, zoning, parks and pathways, open space. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot.
So specific to planning and zoning, this is an area that I saw overstepping bounds.
So you're saying planning is overstepping?
No, I'm saying that my observation is our prior manager overstepped her
Okay.
authority for planning and zoning. And someone made a unilateral decision that community benefits would be negotiated at the pre-app meeting, which is not really what happens, because I went to one. That is a board decision.
That's a board decision for sure.
That was where it was
Okay.
usurped.
And I
So
wasn't even
the-
aware. That's a board policy decision.
Absolutely. And, you know, I would make public comment till I was blue in the face. And, you know, So I'm hoping that if we define a clear, regular reporting from department heads.
I do that recently, so 2025, I already have a lineup for the whole year. I'm gonna go over with Jessica real quick, but it's informal, but
Yeah,
informal meaning everybody reports quarterly or tries to. Some departments report a little more frequently that are a little more heavily, like fire, utilities. That's not saying it's probably good for twice a year.
Well, I would make a suggestion, which I plan on doing when I have some authority. But I would suggest that we have a monthly meeting, a work session, that department heads tell the board what's going on monthly.
And have all department heads show up to the same, at the
Doesn't,
same
if
time.
if there's nothing to report, for example, like assessing,
Mhm.
maybe not, but, and to get away from this problem of, board meetings that department heads are required to stay until 11 o'clock.
I like that idea.
I like that.
I like that
Yeah.
idea a lot.
To me,
Good idea.
well,
And it could be, once a month at 4 o'clock, and then all they have to do is stay a little bit longer.
Mhm.
The board or it could be 6 o'clock before a regular meeting.
Oh, there you go. That's a great.
yeah, absolutely, and I,
You gotta come anyway.
well, yeah, and I've had that,
I like
an
that.
idea for a long time, that the chairs of the committees meet with the department heads. And maybe we can fit that in, because we have these committees that, one committee's doing something, and what they're doing may be incongruent with what a plan of another committee. But then there are also some of these committees affect fire and utilities. So if we, or whatever, and so the department heads would have an idea of what those committees are doing.
Every
as well.
committee needs to have report to. In that, they would report to a department head.
Well,
Clearly Parks, you have that. Open space. We
well,
don't.
I think that would fall under Parks and Pathways, wouldn't it? And preserves, open space.
No, the Parks Director does not manage the open space.
She does that.
Well, maybe would that be project manager? But anyway, but the thing
It could
is,
be
is
work.
that,
We have to define the projects that he's
Yeah.
managing.
We haven't done that yet.
right.
Planning. Is it accurate to say that we have released that to an outside consultant?
Well, historically, Carlisle Wortman has provided all of the township planning and zoning services.
Okay.
And for a long time, like 20 years.
Yeah, well, right, but we've had this
We-
committee or. and then we have them more.
So- We haven't gotten out for bids. But they do have a lot of historical.
Institutional knowledge that.
Institutional knowledge. So that is where we are right now.
Okay.
And that would be a blown decision. We want to do it differently. We
Because
want to look
this
at
has
other
been,
options. We talked about that.
Yeah, this is my observation with the planning, is that one, they've relied on them, which whether or not going out to bid or not is beneficial, I'll hold that really to the side. But I see the planning, an item comes to them, a request comes to them, and they have meeting after meeting after meeting, and they make these little baby steps.
You mean like a PUD proposal?
A PUD, or even some others, like Maxi, the tower. So they do these little things and say, come back with this. And then it's come back with this, and then come back with this. And then finally, they have kind of worked the applicant over enough times, and then Carlisle Wortman will say, it's consistent with the master plan, and so we recommend to go forward. So they've worked him over and worked him over and worked him over. And then finally, at one point, they say, okay, it meets the master plan with this condition or that condition. And then planning votes to move it to Board of Trustees.
Let me comment on
Okay.
Maxi. Maxi was
Well,
unusual
Okay, could we?
because it had two steps, the conditional use part. That's required under our zoning ordinance. And we had kind of a fluke in our zoning ordinance that we have this two-step
It's
process
conditional.
in
and
a
then the site
situation
plan.
like this cell tower
Okay,
application.
could we get back to?
And then they have
this?
to go back to another one. I know.
I know, I mean, that's a whole other
This
conversation.
whole other
I know,
planning is,
I know.
has,
Yeah,
but the whole Carlisle thing is a whole separate,
Yes.
both Carlisle
is.
and OHM is a whole separate conversation.
yes,
yes,
definitely,
yes,
and it's
yes.
a huge conversation.
Yeah, yeah,
We could go.
okay, so
That's
take
a
it out.
very good point. This doesn't have engineering in here at all.
Mhm.
Oh,
So
okay,
where does engineering, how do we,
that could we just put that right under and, planning zoning for this, at this moment, so we
we
keep
could
track
just
of it?
add it as another category?
As another item.
And then
Because
here's,
it's a big contract.
yeah, and then here's the other one, and all other initiatives of the township,
Yeah,
did we talk about that?
no.
I don't think we should have that in there.
I know.
Strike it through.
And then, okay, for the next one, the next bullet point,
Right,
effectively administer all reporting departments and associated personnel, including the ability to recruit, provide professional development and manage performance.
Well, see, now we have an HR person.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's.
This is irrelevant.
uh,
I would like to write on this piece of paper, but, I think there's. I'm gonna write on. Okay,
so, yeah, we need to look at that. There's a section here about HR, which is really, we have staff now, so that's further down. What should I do with this in the meantime? Strike it?
Strike it.
Okay, anything we strike is not lost.
Okay.
It's,
And can you send us kind of your draft of what we
yes,
talked about today?
Yeah, because I'm not putting everything
not
in the minutes because,
yeah, that's what, I'm
Yeah.
marking this up.
super.
I'm taking on the great responsibility to rewrite this. and
Yeah.
Give it to you guys. I'm gonna be asking for a raise real soon.
Take
track,
note, Aurora.
Oh, that's sarcasm, just for the record, that's sarcasm.
track implementation of all Board of Trustees approved actions.
Okay,
As you can see, this has always been a problem.
well, Jess is fulfilling some of this now.
Some, but, and it isn't, everything shouldn't be up to her.
Mm-hmm.
But the tracking of issues has been a problem, and that is something that this manager should do. I would support leaving that.
Yes, I agree. There are some statutory requirements that the board, that clerk publish board decisions, but then the actual implementation, okay? All right, the next one, organize and chair management meetings.
Oh, that's what Chrissy's been doing that.
I think that's
Right.
fine.
That's fine?
And are they held bi-weekly? I mean, we would, do we?
They're
really
held
need-
the week before a board
Okay,
meeting.
do we really need to say in a job description though, only bi-weekly?
I think we could remove that. It's just,
Okay.
Yeah, because this month it's been thrown off.
Yeah,
And
I
we don't
mean-
wanna, yeah, cause if they agree to bi-weekly and it's not, then what are they gonna say?
It-
No?
I just take it out, it's.
Okay. Research and develop best practices of business processes, workflow, cross-functional work teams to meet the needs of the various areas. That is a lot of broad gobbledygook.
Yeah, And I think that's where the department heads and also the staff would come in, to some degree, because they're doing that would be a whole subject or even a working session alone to review,
We could change this to say, provide advice on processes.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You could either strike it or say that you would like input to business processes.
Yeah, let's,
Suggestions or something, or you strike it.
What about something like advise and on interdepartmental processes within the township? Or, I mean, because I do see there has been some work done on this cross-training between utilities, the utilities billing clerk and Rebecca. They've both been doing cross-training so they can do each other's job if need be.
And, oh, go ahead, Ryan.
Two quick questions. One is, I think if we could certainly ask Aurora's input if we're struggling
Yeah.
on how to word
Yeah.
this. She has obviously a lot of experience writing job descriptions. The other thing I've been made aware of, and I don't know if this is something we want to take a break and do or suspend the meeting, that there was certainly, I know that conflicting meeting that we got notified of yesterday with the HVAC people. They've asked for some of our presence, but if we want to continue this discussion, I didn't know how
You
long.
could take a 10-15 minute break.
Yeah, if we want to suspend the meeting for 10 minutes in order to do that, it's up to the chair's discretion. I just
We've got a long
notified
ways
by
to go, but
Christie.
I mean, it is 1 o'clock.
I would not, I wouldn't suggest suspending because we have audience members. And we have the public.
The public, yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention.
can they,
I
wait
got an
another
impression it was
half
going
hour?
to be longer than a 15
They've
minute.
been, well, they've already waited a half hour. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I can certainly just,
We didn't have that feedback that they thought we were gonna start at 1, so.
Well, yeah, and it's just kind of thrown at us. I didn't,
It was too late.
yeah. Okay, well, unless what we could do,
We can
I
take
told them
this
I'm not
meeting
going.
until 1:30 if you like.
Or do you mention, made the comment that we've been at an hour and a half
Yeah.
with your thoughts?
I'm ready to go.
2 hours counting both.
okay, then,
I think training,
Wimps.
you train people by what you do. So this meeting was on the books
Yep,
and it was not hidden, it was published, and therefore there's a level of respect to the public and to us for other people to see just scheduling a meeting and throwing it on others is not professional, it's not appropriate, I don't think. And as a result, I don't want to train someone else to all of a sudden take over my calendar.
agree.
And,
And I'd be happy to go with Christie, just a little message that this meeting is pre-scheduled. Unfortunately, we're not able to do this right now.
Yeah, that's fine. I was never gonna go anyway, so that's fine with me.
And I didn't see it as a 15-minute because in talking to Chris
Mm-mm.
yesterday in the hallway, it was, they wanted to engage in Q&A.
Right. I talked to Chris yesterday.
That's what Chris, in the hallway, he
Okay,
said,
Yeah.
come with questions. There was not, and
I just didn't also want to be, I didn't want to be rude to us, but I also wanted to be fair if we were gonna make somebody wait and they were waiting for no reason.
Do you wanna go tell
okay,
them?
if they can wait a half hour.
Okay.
And then I think we can go, do a couple, and then we need to also schedule for our next meeting with
yeah,
public
so,
comment.
I mean,
Yep.
We can get that
Kathleen
into
has
a
us
half
on a roll here as,
Yep, and I apologize for interrupting. Are they
Yeah,
in the
it's-
hallway or?
They're up by the front space.
Oh. I don't have to keep up.
Here,
Otherwise I would. I'll let them know.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
You can continue, apologies.
Okay, so the research and research and develop best practices of business processes, we're just going to,
So I took a note that says advise on interdepartmental processes and cross-functional work. That's good. That's good. I just took a stab at it. Or actually, I took your. Okay, so let's recap on what we are gonna accomplish and let's think about when we would like to end this. This is gonna take a while.
yes,
I don't think we're gonna get to the other agenda items.
right.
Because they're going to take a while. I think this is a good effort.
And now that the election is passed, we'll be beginning our new board term. I don't want this to wait another month for us to meet.
Right.
I think maybe at the most every 2 weeks, because we made a commitment for this position or positions, whatever we.
That's fine. So do you guys want to keep doing this for another 15 to 30 minutes? Or do you want to pause here and we decide what our next meeting date will be?
Let us get down, why don't we get down to the bottom of this page?
Okay, good.
I mean,
Yeah, but
we're focused.
I
no
think
later
it's
than
gonna-
20 after, because we still need public comments and then to,
Okay, good.
Yeah,
okay, let's do that.
Good. Okay, so let's jump into finance. I think some of this is pretty straightforward. Do we want this position to assist the supervisor in preparing and administering the annual budget?
Well, here's the thing.
There
Again,
is some statute.
right, the Uniform Budget and Accounting Act, if their title is manager, then they take on that duty. Now,
Exactly.
do you want, were we happy with the last budget process? Oh,
You
I
were,
mean-
all I saw was what was presented.
yeah, I found
I
it
wasn't involved.
inadequate. I found it was rushed and inadequate, but I didn't know where the
what we could do is have
linkages.
the manager assist the supervisor. Then that way it's not under just one person or another. And of course, there's going to be department heads and
Finance director.
finance that are, it's gonna be collaborative, but I found with the manager, when it was under the manager alone, there were things that we wanted that were not included or removed without any communication whatsoever. And we just ran across something like that in utilities. So I think that if there's working together, then we're not able, to
So
do that,
you-
or
Suggestion, you keep this language. How would you address that? It's really,
Assistant supervisor is, are you comfortable as supervisor and with a manager that he or she would be assistant supervisor?
you're working together.
Could I add something?
sure.
Yeah.
The way the sentence, and I'll just move up here real quick. The way the sentence is structured, formulated by the board and state law. And someone said it, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch who it was. Jillian, I think it was you, regarding, if the title is township manager. So yes, I agree with the collaboration of the supervisor and the township manager. It's also a check and balance. And then there would be awareness as to what was going in the budget or what someone is proposing to take out, rather than it be a surprise later on. So I definitely think it should stay in there. And typically it is in other township manager job descriptions. The finance aspect of it, budget reporting, et cetera, falls under the township manager general law.
So you're happy with that language for that sentence?
I think it should stay, yes.
Yeah, I don't personally want to be tied to having to name this, the manager. If you can assign duties, right? You could call this position anything you want, and you can assign these duties. and you're still in compliance with the Uniform Budget and Accounting Act.
Well, but the Accounting Act does state that if the township does have a manager, that the budget falls under the manager.
They become the CEO, yes.
Yeah, the CEO.
So we will have to ponder that title thing, and we fully understand what the implications are. Okay.
So so under the title manager regarding the Budget and Accounting Act. I mean, that's to trigger that, okay. Acts as the purchasing agent for the township.
That is that statutorily the supervisor?
I don't think so, no. It's usually called the second purchasing agent. Because the supervisor is also the purchasing agent, and so they typically, whoever's in this position is called the second purchasing agent.
So shouldn't we say something like work collaboratively with the supervisor?
Well, so do we need, if it's not statutorial, do we need to define the purchasing agent is the
Well,
responsibility of
That
the
has
supervisor?
been, and
I
No,
know,
it has been. Oh, well, then we have to get in front of it then.
potentially we should define it. I don't know that it's going to be an issue with the new board. But in the past, what has happened is, sometimes people have sought to initiate and approve an expenditure for something that's under $5,000, because they can do that without approval by the board, yeah.
And then use it 10 times for the thing that has a higher ticket.
I think that particular problem could be improved upon by some language modification in the purchasing policy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily sure that
Okay.
this position is going to, hopefully they won't have to even have that conversation, because we can make it clear the intent and the consequences around what that is meant to be for, what it is not meant to do. You got daisy chain expenses together in order to accomplish.
It's in a different place.
Daisy chain.
Yeah,
Next, the act as the purchasing agent, could we put, I just had the word.
I don't remember what I said.
Revisit, I guess, so we can define.
It was
Yeah.
something like work collaboratively with
Yeah.
the supervisor. I don't think the manager should be the sole purchasing agent for the township, so. But they need to have some authority.
okay, so I might suggest the definition of the classic definition of a purchasing agent is the person that sources the service or material supply and creates the contract. Someone else determines the need for that. Okay, so in my experience, let's say I'm a department head, I need to get the new generator, for example. I recognize the need, I request that or requisition that the purchasing agent consummates that. In other words, they go and find the sources satisfying our policy requirements, and they would then create the contract.
And then it's final board approval,
Exactly.
certainly.
but yeah. Yeah, we do have provisions in the policies for emergency
And
then anything under
Mhm.
5,000.
right, and to deal with the segregation of duties issue,
Mhm.
I was a purchasing agent / buyer in corporate America. I was not allowed to requisition anything. Because
You would then be negotiating your own requisition.
right, so it could have come from the department head, but I personally could not say, I want a new office chair and go and buy it. And buy it from my uncle. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We'll watch you. Got your eyes on you.
Okay,
And pay my aunt.
right. So the, with that bullet point, are we complete at this time or to move on?
Well, what did we decide on?
Well, it says act as the purchasing agent for the
Yeah,
township.
but we weren't in
Right, so
agreement on
how do
that.
we want to?
No, Christie, you referenced that secondary. So how-
Second purchasing agent. But long story short, I approve everything in BSNA. Invoice wise. If it goes to the board, then we do the PO for it with the board agenda item, but Will doesn't go in to BSNA, to my knowledge, and approve invoices.
So as the manager, you approve
The invoices that are submitted to Rebecca, they're coded.
So anyone could send them to Rebecca.
Rebecca said, I don't get every single one, like when Jessica was out sick yesterday, she asked that I approve her invoices.
I see.
So Rebecca sent me Jessica's to approve. So. I mean, Will may
But
approve some, but not to mine, I don't know which ones he does.
Okay.
approving the invoices is different from acting as a purchasing agent.
Yeah.
But it also enables, I thought, to approve certain invoices over a certain amount. Now, I can tell you, since I've been doing this, I have not signed my name to anything that was related to a purchase of anything. So, get that clear.
So, okay, what is it that they're purchasing? Because I know.
I believe it's more, I see it more as a title to be able to approve the invoices.
No, that's
But-
not,
Yeah,
Not what
that's not how
purchasing
I see
agent-
that's not definition.
So Christy, let me ask you an example based on something I saw the other day. So for example, we needed more printer paper because we were low and or out. You went to Staples website, you
Mhm.
used,
They invoice us.
they invoice us for the
Mhm.
large order of printer paper. It shows up a couple days later, the invoice shows up either electronically or in person. You purchased it and because you saw the need and it was your area of
But I've,
responsibility.
yep, exactly.
Then the invoice arrives, it goes to Rebecca, it gets routed for payment.
Well, I get it. When it comes in the mail, I get it. I code it
Mhm.
and then give it to Rebecca and Rebecca pays it.
Okay. Does that help a little bit as far as like maybe? a
But I would do that
simple-
regardless of the position of the extra duties I'm doing.
Oh, so you've been doing that for?
Since
years.
I've been here,
Okay,
yeah.
I think that's a policy decision that we can discuss because in my experience, you have a requisition, a purchase order, a receipt of the service or materials, and you have an invoice.
to pay it.
If you do this systematically, the receipt allows the approval. Because the person that asked for it got it, they got what they requisitioned. That then acts as approvals for the invoice to be paid. So with you doing it, how do you know that the service was received?
If it was like a utilities,
I would, the fact that they submitted an invoice should
No, see, that's the
Yeah,
difference.
I could make an advice up.
Right, so this is where we can, that's what I'm saying, we can do this, deal with this in policy.
Mhm.
Doesn't necessarily have to change, but it should
No,
not.
I
be-
understand what you're saying, because
it
Mark
should not be
Thompson
driven-
Mark Thompson kind of had those same questions.
Right,
How do we know the KVK salted? How much salt did they use?
Yeah, they use a ton of salt,
But,
but anyway.
But, yeah.
But it's, so I think, and I'm not sure, but purchasing agent, I was thinking of a contract like GFL.
exactly.
That is, we're purchasing that service. So then that was over a certain amount of money that had to be board approved. Of course, everything has to be board approved, but then it was the supervisor and the clerk that had to sign that contract.
Right, and I,
they're
I remember.
typically the ones that sign all of those. I mean, I know Joyce did and Mark, there was contracts that they signed. I don't know what differentiated.
Right,
from
and
the
this is
other,
where
but-
we're, and I think maybe that this little line right here needs to have further discussion, and when Jessica's here, she probably can give us some more
She did
insight.
walk in.
I saw her.
Okay,
okay, so based on time, I think we need to,
Yeah, we didn't.
well, could we just finish finance here? We have one more bullet point, and I think.
well, I think this is another policy thing that needs work.
This whole
Okay.
contract management,
No, she's the last bullet in finance.
yeah, that's about bidding procedures, also it's back to. Oh, okay, got it, yeah. Yeah, that's the next section.
Yeah, that's a big one. Because it's not just bidding procedures, but it's also the sale of
Sales,
Yes,
property.
which is asset liquidation, yeah,
mhm.
not necessarily finances.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take that for now. We'll rewrite with underlines. Okay, so then let's move to public comments.
I'll be fast. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much to listening today. This committee gives me really positive reinforcement for what is coming ahead. And I want to thank each and every one of you. I know several of you will be signing in next week anew, and I'm grateful for that. I left the Board of Trustees meeting the other night and I was disturbed. So thank you so much. Secondly, I'm really happy to hear how much you're looking into the position, clarification of it. I think salary, a number of things. I think this is a great start for the township. And just one comment is, I realize the public here, I feel like I'm the division representing the township, but the public needs to understand the pattern of their communication with Scio Township. And I do believe there's been a great deal of misconception about that. An example, which might be helpful for clarification on this position, is when GFL made huge failures, the Klubecks personally had problems. The township manager at the time was well aware because it was presented at trustee meetings. And there was a nod of the head, and we had an understanding we would hear from the township manager. It was a contractual issue and problem. And there was never any communication that came from either the township manager to us or the person that oversaw the manager, such as the supervisor at the time, never. So eventually we were directed to an enforcement officer. But when you're looking at responsibilities, the public really doesn't have an understanding. And so this is great information. Hope it gets out to a lot of people, but also to recognize we do pay taxes. We appreciate all your work, but we need to know when we do have an issue. And a small example of that is this broadband issue that our area is having. There is no representation to the county commissioners for the drop of the broadband issue. It's only 65 homes, but it's an issue and we no longer have any representation of that issue. And the GFL is just another one. So in doing your thinking, maybe consider, does that person interact with the public? Or is that person in a private environment that does not?
So Renee, would you
Yes.
suggest that we have something that talks about public engagement?
I personally
In the
feel,
job description?
hearing what I heard before the voting, knowing that what we went through personally on one and now two issues, we did not feel engaged with the township manager. And maybe it's that, what I believe it was Jillian represented, that the list is way too big. And I have to say, the person, and I will go on record here, the person that got us directed and helped us immensely with the second time we had to come back was Christy. And I'm not even sure you were in the next position yet as the temporary. But that explains a lot about the confusion of where the direction of responsibilities. So I'd just like to compliment her. And also the enforcement officer left, but he was involved in the first time. So just not a real clarity. And then this, the second comment, I'm sorry, I'm talking too long. The second comment I wanted to make is there was a there was the audience, we're using that word now, the audience for the trustee meeting. And forgive me because I am learning about ordinances. So if I'm misspeaking, please forgive me for this. I'm trying to understand. I understand that some trustee is assigned to each committee as an interaction. I believe Kathy is involved with parks. Am I correct?
Well, planning, zoning and
Okay.
land use.
Okay.
Yes, suddenly parks has come into the
Okay.
picture.
So the conversation that came up in the community a little bit after, it literally looked, and I know something was mentioned, and I only want to say because it talks about overstressing certain positions and what's going on, is that you have a committee meeting for parks and preserves. You have 8 people on the committee. You also have attending a director, Murphy, you have Chris, and you have John Reisner. And then now we've got another person. So there's all this time of paid employees that is doing. And so I am confused, and I'm, please feel free to tell me later, but like, I'm confused. Like, we got a lot of chiefs going around. And I heard a rumor that in 2025, there's a compensation for certain things. So I'm gonna be learning even more about what's paid in the township and whatnot, I think. But it does look, that presentation the other night looked combative to the board, to many of us. And so what I was bringing that in with this position is, where does this all kind of connect to a high-paying township, either manager or administrator? And from the medical field, I well understand descriptions and job descriptions are so critical and important. So it felt like the board that was up there was kind of battling against the people that are here to work for things. So I'm just saying, it was an example of like, well, who's running what? And who's overseeing what? And why are we doing it this way? So when we're looking at this new job assignment, it's a great time to really understand, who does the public go to? We just don't know as the public, and I get that, but I think there's more confusion. So I appreciate the detail that's going into this committee. You guys are working really hard. I don't mean to keep you, and I just want to say thank you. It was a great thing to come to. I tell anybody to come and listen.
What I take out of that is that we need to consider a category called public engagement. And how do we engage with the public?
I agree.
Either this position, a different position.
And, you know, simply is just, even if we have questions with, who would we talk to if we didn't feel the board meeting, we heard enough about a decision that was made that was $30,000 or $40,000, and we're asking, we don't know who to go to. We don't know who to talk to. You know, do we talk to a director? Is that the person that's really running the ship? Do we talk to our supervisor? Do we talk to a trustee? It's confusing. So I think this is a great way to start. Like I said, there were 2 pretty big issues that I mentioned to the township manager. One, the broadband issue, one, the constant problem we had with, you know, fraudulent billing from GFL, which was a contract by the board. So we never got any interaction in that way. So again, thank you to Christy, and actually Jessica got me hooked up with enforcement officers. So just want to say thank you and for all the hard work.
Thank you, Renee. We need to consider public engagement. Where is that? Okay, anyone else?
We have 2 hands raised.
Actually, Pam Boyd's hand was up first, somehow Rob is now raised, I don't know, I'll go with Rob, hang on, Pam. Go ahead, Rob.
Pam had her hand up first. Please let her go first.
Okay, okay, thank you, Rob. Go ahead, Pam.
Thank you, Christy, and thank you, Rob, and thank you, Renee. To add to one of Renee's comments, you know, the Washoe County Road Commission has I think is it bi-monthly or monthly, where they have rotating staff do a Zoom meeting over lunch, and they rotate their board members so that the residents can call in and ask questions. That might be kind of a quick and dirty way to open things up to residents. And it's not necessarily on one person's shoulders or another. Oh my gosh, this meeting was a balm to my soul. You guys dealt with issues that have been festering in this township for years. I wrote so many notes. Maybe the biggest one is one of the early comments, I'm sorry, I forget who said it, but that Christy is doing such a good job. So my question to you is, can you keep Christy on some of these positions? And, you know, we've all said that the manager job is too broad, there's too much to do. So what if you, bless you, what if you have a kind of a part-time assistant or some of those positions? The other thing is in regards to how Christy and Fran have to take all of these payments. Well, you know what? We have a lot of new positions in this township, and the back room, so to speak, can redo how they do things. Why can't the treasurer and the deputy treasurer be in charge of that to free up that time for Christy to do other more important things? Not that taking money isn't important, but so expanding, it isn't just the manager job, but how can you facilitate the other positions that are around the manager and you guys to make it more efficient? I think I will stop there. I do want to watch this again because there was just so much here, and I thank you all for how well you work together and all of the really good ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks.
Rob, go ahead, please.
Rob Pattinson, Scio Township President. As usual, Renee Klubeck and Pam Boyd are right. I really like the idea of Christy taking on an expanded role, and that helps you alleviate some of the job description problems with the manager administrator position, and having an incredibly effective person already in place, already doing the job, makes a lot of sense to continue that. As usual, this meeting was and this subject was a lot more complicated than I expected, and I sincerely appreciate the depth to which you are examining the issues. And this may be more than a once a month meeting. Getting a manager in place is rather important. Maybe this is a twice a month meeting so that we can get that job description in place and get the hiring process going. That might be a way of speeding things up. Well done, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. Quickly
I see
before,
no other hands raised, Kathleen.
Okay, let's talk about next meeting.
yes,
So we have Thanksgiving coming up. We have,
What's the first board of trustee meeting in December?
December
December
3rd.
3rd.
Yeah, and the 17th.
Yeah.
Just keep those in mind, and I don't have in December.
So do you want to try for the first week in December?
No,
Okay,
that Tuesday, we've got multiple meetings here. I've got the card meeting, we've got the board meeting, we're starting early on the board meeting, starting at 5.
I don't mean necessarily the Tuesday, but on that week, or do you want
Well,
to push it out?
Yeah,
that-
hold on a second.
I think potentially Thursday or Friday that week would be an option, at least for me, and that gives us.
And it may not be for me, the Thursday may not be for me, but if it works for everyone else,
How about that Friday?
that would be okay.
No.
I've already, see, I'm gonna be gone for a week,
Okay.
or for 10 days actually, and I'm just coming back on that Monday night before Tuesday, so I've got,
That's me too. So, I'm too, so. mhm.
I've got a lot of stuff in
Yeah.
place for that
Mhm.
first week in December.
Okay,
What about Monday, the 9th?
Monday, the 9th. That's
That
where.
would be fine.
I
For
don't know.
both meetings? Both, or are we just doing
Yeah, because we never did set up another,
ad hoc?
yeah, I would say we should do the same thing
Yeah,
again.
Okay.
yeah, just have them piggyback
Do
each
you
other.
want, do you want to do the same timing?
11:30?
Well, one thing you could do is have one meeting, and the first thing is address status. You know, what we just, instead of having separate meetings,
Yeah,
and you can be the chair for the whole kit and caboodle.
Oh, no, wait a minute.
Well, then you don't have to, Zoom, then you don't have to shut down Zoom.
yeah, I think that, I think it'd just be easier to have a status update since we're not,
Okay.
unless we actually take action to change anything, you wouldn't need to have. It's
Okay,
just a discussion point.
I was kidding about the kit and the caboodle. Okay, so time of day,
My computer decided to reboot or to whatever it's doing. And my calendar's in it.
I can do morning, but I always prefer afternoon, but I can go in the morning too.
Christy and I'll be here all day.
I'm sorry, what day is that?
The 9th.
We could do 2
Monday.
o'clock.
Sure.
yeah. let's-
Sure.
How's that?
2
Fine with
o'clock
me.
would be great. Okay.
And we should expect that if people have other obligations, that's fine, you know, we do inform via minutes.
But this far out,
Yeah.
this is, regular scheduling, yes, when it's the day before. That was
Right.
my,
2 o'clock. All right,
Okay,
make a
so,
motion to adjourn.
Should we schedule the second meeting of that month as well? So we have it in, we can?
Thank you.
And that takes us what, to the
Week of Christmas.
That'd be the week of Christmas.
Well, we
23rd?
could have it the following week. We could do it on the
Mhm.
16th.
I'd be
Yeah.
fine with that.
That sounds good.
You wanna hold it at the same time, 2 o'clock?
At 2.
2 p.m. on the
Okay.
16th? Okay. Does that work, Kathleen?
yes,
Okay.
I don't know, I may or may not show up depending on what's on my schedule already. Look at this. I can't believe it's doing this at this time.
So Kath, so you're technically chair of the manager committee, so you'll give me an agenda when you have it prepared. Okay.
Yeah, and with Ryan and his new role.
That's why I'm fine with having it sort of amalgamated into this greater
it's
discussion.
just an agenda.
It's just an agenda item, yeah.
Well, hold on. Now it's letting me get in there.
Okay.
Okay, so we had a motion to adjourn. Do we-
just a second, who made the, Ryan?
I just, yes.
Now it's not gonna work at all. And Julio's not here today.
No, he's in a training of some sort.
Oh,
Yeah,
here
there
it is.
was a forced reboot, and if it wasn't done, I think it basically took over our computers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It'll take a few minutes, but it'll be started.
Okay, now it's letting me in.
Okay, so,
Okay, so December,
agreement to adjourn?
No, I'm still looking at my,
Oh,
okay, so far. The 9th and the 16th, we said?
Yes.
2 o'clock at both dates.
Okay, good.
All in favor
all
of
in favor?
adjournment?
Aye.
Bye.
1:35.
I might have a scheduling conflict.
Rob, you gotta get on a committee, dude.
Julie,
So,
Is this